Pathfinder is already incredible, clearing tier 15 maps, blasting through the game since level 1. But we wanted to make it even better for breaches, adding chain explosions. This character is solo self-found. I haven't bought anything from the market, and we've been just breathing through the game. The Act 1 to 3 was 6 hours, and in a grand total around 18, we're already sitting at level 85. Vroom. And the best part, my bow is still level 30, and my quiver is level 60. I didn't have to update them, because that's simply how the build works. Now, for the people unfamiliar with the Pathfinder, let me break down what we're doing, how we get the chain explosions, and there's a link to the starter build in the description below. Otherwise, timestamps, jump to wherever you need to be. Pathfinder is the second ranger ascendancy, and we're playing the Shattering Concoction. There's also poison, lightning, whatsoever. This skill is plenty amazing. It adds cold damage and gives you straight away bonus critical hit chance and instant freezes your opponent, plus cold exposure. Yes, we're also lowering the enemy's resistance straight away. And the best part about the Shattering Concoction is that in order to raise the damage, you just need bonus projectile skills on your gear and certain stats on your quiver, but that's it. You don't need a high physical damage bow because it does not influence the damage. The DPS is raising mostly by bonus level. If I get another 2 levels here, I would get another 15,000 DPS roughly. Then you're adding the hypothermia curse to reduce the cold resistance of the enemy further. And that's a lot of your gameplay loop. Just running around, Shattering Concoction, hypothermia, Shattering Concoction, hypothermia. That's it. But now we needed more explosions, and especially chain explosions. We do already have our friend, the Herald of Ice. The Herald of Ice is shattering frozen enemies for bomb. But even that was not enough. We needed more. And that's where two amazing skills come in place. Cast on Freeze and Freezing Mark. Freezing Mark is as interesting as the Shattering Concoction. Freezing Mark is limited to one target. We'll skip that limitation. You mark a target, it gets frozen harder, and if it dies, a cold nova erupts from their corpse. That cold nova has a fixed cold damage, bonus critical hit chance, and it does a huge attack damage nova. Sitting currently at 10,000 damage, that's quite nice to our 40,000 DPS. But that Freezing Mark gets applied by us throwing our Shattering Concoction at the enemy with Cast on Freeze. Cast on Freeze has overabundance to get another Freezing Mark going, and the Freezing Mark itself has the Hourglass support, and that 10-second cooldown does not get added. And then with the Cast on Freeze, you're marking, and then pop, 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 pop. And especially when you're fighting against breaches where tons of enemies are, and you're instantly filling up that Freezing Mark, you get chain reaction super explosions. They get frozen, they shatter into the Nova freeze others, they shatter again, the Herald triggers. Beautiful. It's working so good. The only issue is that it's draining away your mana. And in order to prevent that mana drain, we need to have gain 5 mana per enemy killed. On my gloves, gain 11 mana per enemy killed. And to really never run out, I had recovered 2% of mana on kill on a Sapphire. Bam. And that's all the magic. It's so damn good. Now let me break down every support gem, what gear to exactly look out for, and the passive tree with a lot of comments to that, because there is 2-3 different ways I wanted to set it out to get even more damage. Listen closely. For support gems, the Shattering Concoction gets more slots on level 40, 65, and level 90. That would be the 5th one. Now we have Scattershot for 3 at the same time, together with Cold Infusion for extra cold damage, works wonders. Martial Tempo to throw them faster, and Super Critical. With Super Critical together, we're currently sitting at 1,406 critical strike damage bonus on a 31.49 critical strike chance. That's huge. That's straight up amazing. You want more crit, because your crits are what's going to tear everything into pieces. Rares with a one-shot, bosses losing 1/3 of their HP straight away. Beautiful. We still have the Freezing Salvo with us, together with the Concentrated Effect and the Glaciation. But I'll be honest, the Freezing Salvo I've used a lot until level 80. But at this point, my Shattering Concoction is permanently active as I get a certain belt. Because you need to make sure that you have enough flask charges, because the Shattering Concoction uses your flask charges of your mana flask. But now that I have unlimited, I don't need to thread in any kind of freezing salvos. The Hypothermia is running with a persistence to be active longer, and also the 25% increased effect of the supported curse, to have even more cold reduction. Now the freezing mark, as I said, is running with Hourglass, and that 10-second cooldown does not activate from cast on freeze, which is interesting, together with Ice Bite, that if the Nova freezes someone, we would be getting 35% more cold damage for 3 seconds. Works wonders. And Cold Mastery for just +1 to the supported skill, which in this case gives almost 2000 DPS. Yes, levels are insane for these skills. Then our Cast on Freeze has the freezing mark with the Overabundance for a bonus mark and also Impetus for more energy gain. Wind Dancer is running with Pin, but Wind Dancer is not always active. We'll get to that in a second. Herald of Ice has the Elemental Focus. It cannot freeze, but it cannot freeze anyways, together with Primal Armament and Blind to just blind our opponents and more damage. Ghost Dance has Fast Forward. That Ghost Dance is activating faster. And if we get hit, we get Energy Shield equal to our evasion. We have a lot of evasion. Ghost Dance is amazing to keep us alive, together with Grim Feast, which is collecting continuous Grim Remnants. And then you get your Alchemist boon that grants you 0.23 flash charges per second. Now, the Alchemist boon is only needed versus bosses and not always there as well. So while you're playing up to bosses, you have Wind Dancer active. But as you're then fighting bosses, you activate Alchemist boon. In order to use Grim Feast, Boon, Dance, Herald, and the Cast on Freeze, I'm currently needing 180 Spirit. Keep that number in mind, 180 Spirit. You could decide to obviously not play Alchemist boon and Wind Dancer, then you only need 150 Spirit. But Ghost Dance, Feast, and Herald of Ice, these three should be always active. If we're now in a boss fight and we only had 150 Spirit, I would have to deactivate Grim Feast because Grim Feast in boss fights doesn't work as he doesn't have ads, and reactivate the Alchemist boon. So that's how you could survive with 150 Spirit alone. I prefer obviously 180, because again, Grim Feast bad against bosses. Think about activating Wind Dancer there as well, but then we're already back to the 180 Spirit again. Before we go over the passive, let's look at the gear just to show you how crude my gear is and bad. One thing you want to have is a fine belt. It needs to be a fine belt because flasks gain 0.17 charges per second. These charges per second, together with your flask having 0.2 charges per second, that's already tons. With then the Alchemist boon, you're getting 0.23 again. So that's 0.4 already, that's 0.6 charges per second. And the belt, for example, has 18% increased flask charges gained. That's making your flask top of itself really fast. Together with your passives, even faster. I do have Spirit on my chest and I can sadly not choose another chest piece. It's evasion rating and energy shield, and that's what you want, the combo of evasion rating and energy shield. Together with my amulet also having Spirit. Yes, I would like to kick it out, but that would be the 36 Spirit I need. If I had now a 50 Spirit chest, I could kick the amulet out and just live with 30 Spirit less. But I'm missing 4 Spirit for that. It's very annoying. My bow, again, is a level 40 bow. I've been having this for forever. What it has is 2 very important things. 2 levels to all projectile skills and 61% increased elemental damage with attacks. Boom. Attack speed would be great too. The lightning damage here, the huge chunk of 3 to 47 lightning damage, that one does not go into the Shattering Concoction. There's no lightning damage. It's fire, cold, and there's 3 to 21 lightning from my rings. But the bow itself does not put any of its lightning damage over to the offhand. What helps though is that bonus elemental damage, and then I slotted 2 soul cores. The soul core of Kinta Kola, or yeah, hi, with another 30% increased elemental damage to attacks. So that's another 120% increase. Huge, we love it. Is flat damage, projectile skills, and very important, 32% increased damage with bow skills. Now, the Shattering Concoction is not a bow skill, but the damage with bow skills does count. That being said, if I had a huge chunk of attack speed, more levels to projectile skills, another flat damage stat, I wouldn't care for the bow skills. Optimally would be having a cold damage stat on it, and obviously not playing a penetrating quiver. What you would like to have is either a quiver with attack speed, or I don't have one of those right now, but there's one that gives you a bonus critical strike hit chance to your attacks as well, as we want to have our critical strike as high as possible to really crit all the time. Helmet needs to be full energy shield, and I gotta try resistance helmet, so I'm gonna have a hard time choosing a new one. It needs to be full energy shield because of our passives. That's being turned into evasion rating. So we got tons of evasion rating, and obviously our energy shield goes higher as well. And the rings, if possible, should be having increased cold damage, because that percentual gain in cold damage really gives you nice damage bonuses. We love it. Gloves can also have projectile skills or just flat damage stats. Both would be working. Bonus attack speed, everything would be nice just to get you faster, harder, stronger. And that's a charm we're playing immunity to freeze, as I have died only to freeze. I don't die to anything else, as you're continuously having 2,200 energy shield, and you're pretty much just running through the area, dropping frost bombs, and picking up the remnants, and that's it. Like, you cannot be stopped. Into the passives, and we begin with picking up the bonus projectile damage all the way into the quiver bonus. The quiver bonus is important, as you want your quiver to go crazy. Imagine all the things you have on your quiver, but double them up because of the bonuses you're having. Amazing. Then we went a bit deeper straight away for damage. This is elemental damage with attacks, and this is another 25% attack damage. That's great. This is like huge. Straight up bonus to the concoction with attack speed. Which leads us then to the side here for the bonus critical hit chance, a lot of that, and critical strike damage bonus with the evasion rating and dexterity. That helps to keep you alive. Next up is an emerald into intelligence, and then damage with unarmed attacks, because you're using an unarmed attack. And then you reduce the damage, but you get another 20% attack speed. That's huge. That note is crazy. Now ignore this for a second, because there's something more important to take. That would be Arcane Alchemy. Mana Flask gain 0.1 charges per second. There's another one of those here called Waters of Life. I don't need Waters of Life because I have a fine belt. If you don't have a fine belt yet, play Waters of Life. Together with, if you haven't critted recently, 80% more critical hit chance. Recently means 4 seconds. It's just way too good to not have this with another 20%. Then we're going over for more critical strike damage bonus and more critical strike damage bonus against enemies at full life. That's another 100% bonus. It's crazy. Together with more energy shield, and your helmet's energy shield is being turned into evasion rating and twice of the value. That brings us to the monk side. More cold damage into movement speed, then evasion rating and energy shield, tons of it, together with attack and cast speed, and more damage if we crit recently, plus critical strike damage bonus, critical hit, and even more critical strike damage bonus and crit hit. Now, that is not taken, as you can see, because we went over to the top, where we were able to get ourselves more cold exposure and cold resistance penetration. With my body armor evasion rating is also energy shield. This is not a lot, but is some, together with a boost of evasion rating and energy shield in general. Then bonus in damage, chance, critical hit chance, more damage bonus, and crit hit chance. That is huge and does tons. We could do another 1, 2, 3 points here to get also a gem slot. But first, we would have to fill this one out. And if you now want to slot your amulet with something, you kind of want to go for the Endless Blizzard, level to all cold skills, but that would cost you an isolation, suffering, and fear. What you could also be looking for is a 60% increased maximum energy shield, would also be a suffering, isolation, and fear, so relatively expensive. Otherwise, you might be looking for any kind of critical hit node, because critical hit chance is just simply the most important thing to get for more crit hits. So if you pick up anything on the side here, this is 20% crit hit chance for attacks, increased critical strike damage for attack damage, and then more stun build up with critical hits. Sure, that one would be awesome. Try to find one that does the most. Here, this is reduced max mana, we don't care. It's only Ire Guild and Despair. I already have these 3. 10 strength, okay, who cares, but 35% increased crit hit chance, nice. On our 31.25 times 1.35 now, going up to 42%, yeah, that's pretty freaking good. I love it. Now let's look at the ascendancy. You're going to begin with mana flask charges, then you're going to go into more charges gained and 50% more charges, into more passive skill points, which is insane, and then your last 2 points are useless. Yeah, I said it, useless. We could be getting more skill speed, and then the movement speed penalty of using skills is lower. That has you zooming more. You could also have increased life flask charges gained, and that life flask effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. Life flask effects do not queue. You can use the enduring elixirs, then together with the eternal youth, to have your life flask spam refill your energy shield. It's kind of interesting. But I gotta say, no need for that. Just skill speed, running assault, and we're Gucci. Now, a few important words to the flash charges. We never had a real problem with it. The only time we lagged was during a tier 17 boss fight. So it was a tier 15 map with +1 levels to enemies and corruption. And that dude seemed to have over millions of energy shield. That's why we actually ran out of charges. But the good thing is, with all the recharge we're having, you might just have to dodge for 5 seconds and you get tons of charges already back to then punish him. And during the Trials of Sekimas number 4 versus Zarok, he is having so much HP. That was the only situations where our flash charges were not enough, and we had to use either bow skills in between or some salvos to keep their energy shield not from refilling, but it wasn't a problem. We're doing more than enough damage, and I did not have the second recharge node going on for the flasks because I was cocky and I thought I don't need it, which I didn't unless like that certain specific circumstance. Ladies and gentlemen, what are you saying? Does this have your interest? Are you excited to give it a try? Been playing this from level 1 to 85. It's been an absolute breath through. If you want the starter, there it is. And if you want more endgame tips, there you go. Enjoy and have a great day.